And I tell you, these things that I've experienced make me that much more excited about learning more, sharing more, and doing more to help people live better, because I'm living better myself. I'm proof of it. And I tell you what, to live like this compared to the way I was living 60 days before, I would have never thought it was possible. I'm Tom Peterson, and this is the final chapter, season 1, in my journey with CBD. So this is essentially 60 days in, and I'm going to break this video into 3 different parts. I want to talk about my ailments in the first part, and cover the things that I was suffering from at the time I started this journey with CBD, talked about what has happened along the way, and certainly where I am today. Fascinating journey, not always easy, certainly had its rough patches, but ultimately I'm here, and it has changed my life in an amazing way. I want to share that with you. Secondarily, I want to talk about the things I didn't know about CBD that I didn't know about CBD. What I didn't know. It's been such a fascinating journey to me. It's been so enlightening. I've learned so much along the way, and I want to share with you those things that I've learned above and beyond the obvious, if you've been following my journey thus far. And so just some great enlightenment, some great things that I want to make sure I share with you. And I'm also then going to talk to you about what's next for us. So we have awesome content that's going to be coming your way. So let's just talk about a couple of those things. Well, no, I'm going to hold off. I'll wait. I'll make you wait until we get into that as far as the new and exciting things that we have coming. But this has been so, just in 60 days, such a fascinating chapter in my life. It has just really led me to want to do other things in terms of living purposely, and in terms of my motivation for doing this. And so excited about sharing those things with you, so we can continue to bring more enlightenment, education, and awareness to the human race with regards to CBD. So looking forward to doing that. If this video or any portions of this video can be of benefit to a loved one, somebody you care about, somebody who you know is suffering, please share it with them, okay? You'd be doing them a disservice by not doing so. Also, please subscribe. Like I said, great stuff coming along. We would love to have you here to enjoy that with us, and just be enlightened, be better educated, just have some amazing knowledge about how CBD is changing the world and changing lives each and every day. And then lastly, if you would, like the video, so I appreciate that. If you don't like it, let me know why. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job I possibly can to provide for you in terms of what it is that you're looking for to gain from this video. So I want to make sure we do a better job of that. If there's something that we're not doing well, I'm not doing well, please let me know. And of course, if you got questions, please send them. Don't be shy. I want to try and help you here as much as we can, okay? Back with you, let's talk about my ailments, the things that certainly I struggled with. I'm going to just kind of go in order, much like I did at the beginning of my journey, and talk to you about the one that was really the biggie at the time, and that was my sleep disorder, okay, my insomnia. So the insomnia I was struggling with at the time was the worst that it had been, probably for me, ever. I always had ups and downs. It would go through phases, but I had a very long-lasting period of time in which I wasn't able to go to sleep, you know, in a decent amount of time. It took a long time for me to get to sleep. Even though I was sleeping, I didn't really feel like I was getting deep sleep. I didn't really feel like I was deep in sleep. And then, of course, I would be easily awoken in the morning because of that, based on my wife getting early, ready for work early. She's the early bird. I'm not. I'd be woken up by that and then couldn't go back to sleep. And I was just miserable. I was tired. And even on those nights that I felt like I had a decent amount of sleep in terms of time duration, I still woke up feeling very unrested. I felt groggy, still felt very fatigued. I just didn't feel like I was getting the rest, even though from a time perspective I was. I just didn't feel like something didn't feel right. I was miserable. I was incredibly tired. I was sleep deprived to no end. And, you know, at that point in time, I decided, look, you know, what do I have to lose here? So ultimately what I was taking during that journey, I'll share it with you. And I've got some props here I'm going to share with you guys. I've also got some notes here I'm going to refer back to every now and then too, because there's so much to cover. So if my eyes tend to go here or there, I apologize. Just trying to make sure I stay on top of this. But for starters, let me introduce you to my sleep medication that I was taking at the time. Okay, so this is a Pain Relief PM, And this is something that at that time was kind of a combination of, a pain reliever and a sleep aid, so that I could hopefully address both problems at the same time, because I was certainly in pain at that time too. As far as the ingredients in this, it's nothing more than Tylenol, which is the acetaminophen, and then the other key component here, which is really the diphenhydramine. So the diphenhydramine is pretty much in most of the over-the-counter sleep aids. It's also, a very common ingredient in anything that's for your allergies, okay? So if you've got allergies, you know that the side effects of those over-the-counter meds makes you sleepy, makes you drowsy, that sort of thing, okay? So that is why it is also utilized in these sleep meds that you get over the counter. So again, it was not even really working at the time. I was taking it because nothing else was really working either. And I hadn't gone so far as to get a prescription because I just didn't want to end up going there. It's one prescription I did not get, okay? So as far as the results of this, the problem was, as I continue to, again, learn more and be more educated about CBD and other things that are on the market today, excuse me, this really wasn't helping me get into a deep sleep cycle. Okay, so deep sleep cycles are incredibly important for neuronal repair, neuron growth. It's great for even memory, things of that nature that, we don't even realize these things are all happening. Muscle repair. So all of these great things are happening in our deep sleep cycles. And ultimately, that's what sleep is for. It's a recovery period for our bodies and our brains, really more so than anything. So if you're on something like this, if you've been taking it, or you're on even a prescription sleep aid or sleep medication, the reality is a lot of those, based on the research that I've done, do not allow you to get into a deep sleep cycle. If you're not in a deep sleep cycle, you're not getting what you need from your sleep. I can tell you, based on my 60-day journey, I've had probably 2 off nights where I didn't feel completely well rested. And on those nights, when I know that I'm not getting enough rest, I feel it, but I know why. It's because I didn't sleep enough hours, because I need a certain amount of hours per night to feel well rested. So I'm much more aware of how I'm feeling based on the sleep I'm either getting or not getting. But the sleep that I'm getting is amazing sleep. I'm even able to take naps, which I was not able to do for a very long period of time because I just couldn't settle down in order to do so. So for me, this product here, or anything like it, it's out of here. I've got no use for that, and I haven't touched the stuff in over 60 days. I don't intend on doing so again. So if you know of somebody who's struggling with sleep deprivation, insomnia, whether they're taking medication or not, the reality is they're not getting into their deep sleep cycles, and that's a problem. And I'm going to go into that in greater detail in another follow-up video, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole at this point in time. But just know and understand, if you're not getting the proper sleep, it is very, very difficult, not only to function, whether you realize it or not, but it's also very harmful over time, and certainly not a good thing to be suffering from in terms of your quality of life. So please, again, have them go to the link in this video and utilize the product that I've utilized, the CBD Pure Oil. It has worked for me, has worked for a bunch of other people. And so again, encourage you to do that. Let's not waste any more time with restless nights that quite frankly aren't doing you much good. Okay, so let's discuss the chronic pain. So I've been had been a chronic pain sufferer for decades. I had shoulder surgery about 30 years ago. I had back surgery about 25 years ago. And if I didn't have both of them bothering me at the same time, it was certainly one or the other. And so for me to be 60 days into this journey, I have not had a back flare-up in over 50 days. I think I had one at episode 4, it was about 9 days in. Since that time, I have had no back flare-ups and I have had no back pain. I have never been able to say that in the last 25 years of my life. I've never had a run this good for this long and doing it without anything else other than CBD. So let me just tell you about that real quick. Let me go over here and I'm gonna show you what I've got. Okay, well, this was the ibuprofen that I was taking a lot of. I was on this stuff daily, pretty much from the time I got out of the surgery center when I had my back surgery, okay? This stuff, not good for the stomach, causes constipation, you name it. I suffered with all of that, but that's the price I paid. I had to do something to keep things under control, and this is what I was told to utilize. I haven't utilized this product in over 60 days. I haven't had to, don't intend on it. It's gone. What else do we have over here? Oh yeah, so the Tramadol. Now the Tramadol is my pain reliever, was my pain reliever. And this is the pain reliever that was easier, and that was even, that's an overstatement. This is the pain reliever that I could get as of late, because the stronger stuff, they crack down on that big time. So even somebody who's a chronic sufferer like myself, this is really the best I could get. Now, the Tramadol is, again, prescribed pain reliever, and it works pretty well, but it's not as stout or strong as some of the stronger pain relievers, which I'll get to next. Point is, I haven't had to take this for over 60 days, and I don't need to take it ever again. It's gone. Don't need it in my life. I'm done with it. We've got another one for you. This is good stuff. This is the hydrocodone. I don't know. I never know if it's codone or codone, whatever it is. But it's the good stuff. I know that much. I used to really stress out when I was running low on this, because I thought to myself, oh my God, what am I going to do when I run out of hydrocodone, whatever you want to call it. Pretty stressful that I was so reliant on this stuff, but it saved me many, many times when I was so miserable I couldn't even think straight. It helped. Let's just face it, it helped. But side effects, constipation, bad hangovers. I hated the hangovers. So because of that, I really didn't utilize the product unless I absolutely positively had to, but it was becoming more often than not, and it was getting to be pretty scary. I haven't touched this stuff in over 60 days. I don't need to. At this point in time in my life, I feel so comfortable and so confident in what I'm doing and how I feel that I'm not worried about when I'm gonna have to use my next pain pill, because I haven't had to use one in a very long time. Matter of fact, even when I had my flare-up at 9 days in, I still didn't use an anti-inflammatory or a pain pill during that flare-up. And I am pain-free as I speak to you today with regards to my back. Now, my shoulder is a whole different story. Those of you who have watched the journey, you'll see that my shoulder was causing me all kinds of trouble. I had multiple flare-ups. I think I have 3 episodes dedicated to it. And I couldn't understand, or, why on earth is this happening? My back is doing so well. My shoulder is not. How do you make sense of that, And so I really had to spend a lot of time. And again, the benefit to my journey was I didn't resort to the pills. In the past, I would have utilized the pills instead of just saying, look, I got to get this figured out for myself. I need to take some time to do it. I need to spend some mind time on it. And so ultimately, I found that my shoulder, which is hyperflexible, okay, I've got a lot of scar tissue in there. It's hyperflexible. It moves around a lot. It becomes partially dislocated quite often. And it's very painful when it does, and that's when it tends to flare up really bad. So that's ultimately what happened. What I found, though, was that there was something else going on. And there was a reason why I couldn't seem to get my shoulder to relax, get back to where it needed to be, and stay there. Well, I found along the way that I suffer from another condition called myofascial pain syndrome. And myofascial pain syndrome is essentially the facial fiber. Is that what it's called? I have to look and see. I check my notes here. But anyways, it's the facial material that apparently holds your muscles together. And that's really where these knots reside. They're muscle knots. And so they reside in the myofascial, facial, is the fascia, if you will, the covering. So it resides there, and I have these trigger points that are essentially muscle knots. What happens is when these trigger points or muscle knots contract, which was happening down my entire arm in different places, it ultimately would pull my shoulder forward because it's tightening everything up from the front, from my wrist all the way back to my shoulder. So I found through the research, and again through another experience that I had with CBD, which I'll get into later, a little bit later. I'll tell you a bit more about that one. But through that experience with CBD, multiple experiences I had with CBD, mind you, with regards to a mind-body connection. But then also me just not resorting to the pills, taking time to figure it out. I figured out what was going on. Well, so what I did is I realized, because I started to think, what did I do years and years ago before pills came into play and they became the solution to the problem? And I had to go back decades. What else did I do at that time? And I thought to myself, well, I used a topical. Now I remember having to use a topical after working out or whatever when my shoulder was acting up. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try that out. So I have a CBD topical that I'm utilizing. And so there's a link for this topical in the video below the video. And so it's a CBD Medic back and neck CBD infused topical. And it has been an amazing, amazing result between that topical and the CBD oil. That combination has essentially, eliminated this myofascial pain syndrome from the inflammation of the shoulder, and therefore now I don't have inflammation of the shoulder anymore, and I haven't had any more shoulder flare-ups. So imagine that. And so for me to be able to figure that out along the way in this journey, I didn't have to go to a doctor to figure that out, or I didn't have to go to a physical therapist or a specialist of some kind. I was able to figure that out on my own, doing some research based on the symptoms, and also having a better mind connection with my body in terms of what I was actually feeling. Ridiculous me, I was so wound up when this whole journey began. I had been treating this syndrome for years. Yes, I was working on my trigger points. I was treating this, and I would do it all the time. There was something going wrong many, many years ago. But again, I didn't really have the clarity that I have now to really stop, figure it out. Now I have a pain management system in place if I have another flare-up, and it works phenomenally. So that problem doesn't lead to other problems and cause my shoulder to flare up too. I'm able to keep it now within the myofascial tissues of my arm and those muscles, and essentially keep it contained there. If it flares up a little bit, I put a little bit of my ointment on there. It's gone within minutes, and that's it. End of story. It doesn't fester and become something much worse. So it's just been absolutely amazing to me. Let me see if there's anything else I want to share with you about that. So on the additional benefits here with regards to the inflammation. So as far as the meds go for the inflammation, let me show you those to you as well. We're almost done. I'm almost running out of pills here. Let's see. This is the, oh, yes, of course, the prescribed ibuprofen that was the heavy-duty stuff, from the doc, 800 milligrams strong. Again, it just was more stoppage of my GI tract is pretty much what that amounted to. Anyways, it's gone. I have no use for that stuff. This other one here, meloxicam. Okay, so this is a anti-inflammatory prescription med. This was also utilized at times. We even utilized this along with the pain pills in combination when it got really bad. And so have no need for this. That stuff's gone. Again, I haven't touched any anti-inflammatories, no pain meds, nothing. Prescription over the counter, none of it for over 60 days. Now I've had to deal with some pain. I've had to deal with some inflammation along the way, but because of it and because I didn't resort back to my old ways, I'm much better off today, okay? So let's talk a little bit about, again, what we can do to help you there. If you have somebody that you love, care about, or know who's suffering from chronic pain, I come across people all the time suffering from chronic pain. I've got great, amazing stories to share with you about those people in my life that I care about, that I love, that I've been able to help because of my journey. If there's somebody that you can help by passing this along to them, please do so, okay? And then also make sure that you introduce them to the link below for the product that I've utilized It has made me feel so much better. Both products are there. I have discounts for you, discount coupon codes there for you to take advantage of, for whomever to take advantage of, and reduce the cost. I know it's not cheap, okay? But if it's the value of quality of life for you, you figure out what that's gonna cost. For me, I would have paid 10 times, 20 times, 30 times that if I could afford to live the quality of life that I'm living today, okay? So let me move on. Let's talk about some other things here. I wanna get into some really heavy duty stuff regarding chronic stress, anxiety, and depression, okay? So part of my journey was the, essentially, SSRI that I was on, okay, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. This is the anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication that was prescribed to me because I had stress-induced depression, okay? And so when we're talking about stress-induced depression, this is a chronic stress condition, and this is something that was long-term for me. So I had been suffering for many, 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 many years. It's just that the condition became so bad that I ultimately had to do something about it because I knew I was starting to lose my mind, okay? So I want to go into that with you a little bit. I'm going to have to refer my notes from time to time because there's a lot of interesting stuff here to cover. But this is how that story began. It all began with chronic stress, okay? Chronic stress leads to other things. And in the process of me going through this chronic stress, it essentially is a cause for anxiety. Anxiety is a byproduct of chronic stress. Then depression becomes a byproduct of anxiety. Next thing you know, you've got all three, and you're dealing with all three at the same time. Well, the reality is they then affect your sleep. So you can see how this chronic stress, and I know how many people are out there and under stress, chronic stress, day in and day out. You never feel like you're ahead of things or even on top of things. You're always trying to play catch up. You're always under duress. You've got so much going on. There aren't enough hours in the day. I get it. I've lived it. I've been there for over a decade. Okay. And it started to have such an extreme impact on my brain that's when I realized that I could no longer be a tough guy. And I had to ultimately go to the doc and say, hey doc, you got to help me out here because I'm starting to lose it. And I'll tell you why that happened. Okay. So we know that, well, you may not know this, but I know this now, that long-term chronic stress can be responsible for mental disorders, okay? It can be responsible for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things of that nature that are associated with degradation of the brain, okay? And so essentially what happens is it kills brain cells, shrinks portions of the brain, okay? So I'm just talking about chronic stress here. But if it goes on too long, bad things start to happen, okay? And the problem is when you start to have those things happen, you start to lose your mind. And so that's ultimately what started to happen to me. Due to the chronic stress and the brain damage that was essentially occurring, I started to have memory-related issues. So I could not remember at times where I left very important things, like my keys, my wallet. I would never do that. Stuff that was very important to me. I was always on top of it. And I started to misplace and lose things and have these lapses in my memory. I would have spotty areas where I could not remember, okay? And the reason why that happens is when you get into chronic stress and anxiety that's chronic, ultimately your memory then becomes geared towards focusing on what's causing the stress, what's causing the anxiety. And while at the same time that's happening, your brain is literally in certain areas, the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, it's starting to lose cells. It's starting to shrink. Cells are shrinking. All of these things are happening. And if you're not sleeping on top of that, where you get your neuronal repair and recovery, that's not happening either. So you can see I got into a really nasty combination. It was a very, very dangerous mixture of things. And you throw depression in on top of that, which has very similar issues with the brain, mainly because it releases a tremendous amount of cortisol. And having too much cortisol in the brain certainly does a lot of negative things in the brain as well. So I was suffering from brain damage because of chronic stress and anxiety and depression. And ultimately that was when I led myself to get help. And so if you're suffering from any one of these three things, get some help, whether it's taking advantage of the discount code and utilizing the CBD Pure product I've been utilizing, or it's going to the doc and getting yourself on something, do yourself a favor. Don't live with these things long term. It can harm you. It will harm you. It just depends on how badly and for how long. Dementia runs in my family. I was just essentially setting myself up for that to be my life, okay? And I realized at some point in time I had to do something so things didn't get any worse. So going back to the medication, okay, the SSRI that I was taking, really good. Thank God for it. I could not get to the pharmacy fast enough because at that point in time, I didn't even know what day it was. I knew it was a Saturday or a Sunday. I thought it was a Sunday. It was a Saturday. But anyways, it was very helpful at the time for me. So the problem though is these are designed for short-term use, okay? SSRIs and other anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications, they're not designed for long-term use. They have side effects, okay? So what they do is they artificially inhibit certain things from happening that are naturally occurring in your brain. And so ultimately you're changing the chemistry of your brain in such a fashion that the withdrawal symptoms from something like this are pretty heavy, especially if you're on a heavy dose, because it just changes, the way your brain functions. And again, long-term use of this stuff is not beneficial either. So that's why I wanted to get off of it, or at least reduce the dose. I didn't want to get on a heavier dose because I didn't like the side effects of being groggy. So I was on a lower dose. But again, going back to my journey, I was able to eliminate this completely along the way, from 10 milligrams down to 0. I ultimately decided to go back on it at 5, okay, because I went from 10 to 5 to 0. I decided to go back to 5. And the reason being is because the stress level in my life at that time was still so high, I felt it would be best for me to utilize the combination that at that time was working best. And I found that the 5 milligrams of the SSRI, along with the CBD, was actually performing better than the 10 milligrams of the SSRI by itself or the CBD by itself. So I just went back to that sweet spot where I found the best results given my conditions. And you know what? I'm going to stay there for a little while. This little guy, I'm going to keep him around until those changes in my life are made. And I know that at this point in time in my life, there's changes that I got to make because I can't expect CBD and medication to solve all my problems. Ultimately, if I stay on this stuff, I'm going to pay a price for that. And as far as the CBD is concerned, it can't solve all my problems. I got to solve some for myself, okay? So I'm making those changes in my life to reduce the stress in my life. And so that way the anxiety and the depression go away or are lessened by a tremendous amount because of that. And so I'm looking forward to that happening. But for right now, these little guys are going to stick around a little bit longer. So one more thing regarding chronic stress. I don't know if you've seen this before. If you've watched the journey, maybe you have. This is my mouth guard. And it's pretty scary, I know. It was bit off by the dog. He was chewing on it one day. I caught him, so I had to snip it off here and use the rest. Seemed to work okay, and I didn't want to pay $300 for a new one at the time. And honestly, I just was I wanted the whole thing to go away altogether. It became very irritating for me to wear, but again, my teeth grinding, singular plural. My teeth grinding was so bad that even with the mouth guard, I was still doing damage to my teeth. So it was really a very, very bad case of teeth grinding related to chronic stress. Also caused gum disease, in large part caused gum disease. So now I have, these are very, very painful dental appointments to go to. Got to go all the time, 3 to 4 times a year, yuck. So I was really wanting to do a couple of things. Quit grinding my teeth so I could quit wearing this thing because it was actually suffocating me in a sense. I was not able to breathe properly with it in my mouth. And also, it was starting to irritate my gums. So it was just uncomfortable to wear. I was even having a hard time sleeping with it in my mouth. It just, because there's something foreign in my mouth the entire night. It just started to really get to me. So the interesting thing is, if you watch the journey, I was able to, with CBD, eliminate this thing for 3 nights in a row. And I was pretty excited about that. That was like somebody removing a pillow from my face that they had been suffocating me with for years and years and years in terms of just being able to comfortably breathe at night. because I'm not a big nose breather. I'm a mouth breather. And this thing really made it difficult to do that. But nevertheless, I was able to eliminate this for 3 nights. The 4th night, however, the grinding came back. But as I've said before, CBD and the mind and body connection that I've achieved and experienced with regards to utilizing CBD allowed me to, at that very moment, realize exactly what was going on with my body. And I sensed my body trying to take years and years and years of stress and anxiety and essentially utilize my mouth as a portal to try and get it out of my body. That's what I experienced. That's what it felt like. And I was like half awake when this happened, but it was very obvious to me at that time what was going on. So I decided, look, I'm going to put the mouthpiece back in. I'm going to continue to focus on reducing the stress in my life here on out, and ultimately continue to use the CBD so that over time I can eliminate this thing altogether. The cool thing about what's happening right now is I'm actually able to, before I go to sleep at night, I'm able to determine whether or not I'm going to need it before I go to sleep, and I make that determination whether or not I'm going to wear it, and I'm wearing it about half the time, which is great. And the fact that I'm able to figure that out before I go to sleep, that I'm able to understand my body well enough that, oh, I can feel that there's going to be some teeth grinding going on tonight. I'm feeling a little bit of nervous energy going on in my body. I'll put it in. If I'm feeling really relaxed when I go to bed that night, go to sleep that night, it ain't going in, and I haven't had any problems being woken up because I'm grinding on my teeth. So that's pretty amazing stuff right there. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that with you, because for me, you know, that's something that I'm going to get into in greater detail. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking about that content. So again, if you want to hear more about some enlightening things that I've experienced, that I've had conversations with people about, and I will continue to have conversations with people about on our show, talk more about it in my videos, okay, make sure you subscribe, because that's pretty cool, and that's just one of many, many, many amazing things that I've experienced. We'll get into more of it later in the next part of the video, okay? Let's get on to the next thing. So the next thing is my favorite, probably yours too. Let's see if I can pronounce it right. Irritable bowel syndrome, all right, and constipation. So, you know, the irritable bowel syndrome thing has been not only difficult for me to say, it is a little embarrassing, let's face it. It's not something everybody wants to talk about. Same with the constipation, but you know what? I've experienced it, I've lived it, and CBD has changed all of that, so I want to make sure that I educate you on that as well. So it all started with the constipation, and that began when I was taking the pain pills and the anti-inflammatories, and I was taking that stuff for decades, years, decades, whatever it might be, okay? And so ultimately that stopped up my gut. So I've been dealing with constipation for well over a decade, probably into 2 decades, for a very long time. And it just got to the point where I couldn't find anything to work. Well, so what I ended up doing, I just kept searching and searching and searching until I came across something that helped, and I found something that did. Problem is, it was this. And if you can see the bottle, it's a super cleanse. It's a detox. It's not a stool softener, okay? It's not psyllium husk capsules. It's not designed for daily use. Okay, so in the process of me being so desperate that I utilized something that I shouldn't have utilized, and I knew I shouldn't have because it says so on the bottle itself, do not utilize this as a daily supplement because it will harm you or may harm your digestive system. I had no other choice at the time. And unfortunately, I was on it, I think, long enough. I think it started to cause the irritable bowel syndrome problem. I'm not going to say that 100%, okay? I don't have proof of that. But if I think about the chronology of the time and all of this, the constipation came first, then came the liver cleanse, then came the IBS. Doesn't matter at this point. The reality is, since I started taking CBD 60 days ago, at this point in time, I have had no cramping, I have had no bloating, and so those were the things that with the irritable bowel syndrome, you know, I was having a tremendous amount of cramping and bloating, and these cramps were sharp pains. I mean, it was really, really incredibly uncomfortable, and it would go on for hours, and it was happening more than I would like. I have had none of that in the last 60 days. I've had no cramping. I've had none of that going on. As far as the constipation and the regularity, I am, at this point in time, regular about 80% of the time, and again, that's without using the detox pills, which I was literally using almost every night. I'm still using psyllium husk powder. I always have. It's just part of my daily thing that I do in the morning. I'm going to keep doing it. Doesn't hurt me to do it. And at this point in time, I'm getting better and better by the day. And I would expect that by 90 days, I would not be surprised if I am regular every day of the week and have zero symptoms of this IBS issue problem. I'm getting better every day, but I had to be patient. Okay, so that's something else I want to make sure that I talk to you about here at the end of this video. Give it time. Okay, we all want things to happen right away. We all want things to happen overnight. The reality is, my journey with CBD, I've had to fight through a lot. I've had to deal with pain along the way, and I've had to be patient. So those are the things to remember. This is the end of my story for right now. And I tell you, these things that I've experienced make me that much more excited about learning more, sharing more, and doing more to help people live better, because I'm living better myself. I'm proof of it. And I tell you what, to live like this compared to the way I was living 60 days before, I would have never thought it was possible. But I'm standing here before you. Well, I'm actually sitting right now. But I'm sitting here before you right now telling you it is possible. It happened for me. So if you know somebody who's suffering, if you know of somebody who could benefit, and whether they've got my ailments or other ailments where CBD can help, send them to the link below, have them take advantage of the coupon, have them order the CBD Pure product. It's a 90-day money-back guarantee. What do they have to lose? What do you have to lose? It's just your quality of life, right? So stick around. We're going to talk more about the other two things that I told you I would discuss, and that is what I didn't know about CBD. Very enlightening. So stick around for that. And then also want to talk to you about the cool things that we've got coming up that we will share with you. And again, like I say, this is going to be a really cool journey for all of us. So stick around. I'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you watching my video and hanging in there to have me talk with you a little bit further about things. If there's anything in this video that you feel would be beneficial, or any of the videos that would be beneficial to a loved one, somebody that you know, who's maybe struggling with a condition similar to mine, or maybe something else where CBD could help, please share the video, the content with them. We want you to do that as much as possible. Also, we would love for you to like the video and like us as well. That allows us to have more relevance and more prominence, which allows us to spread more awareness and more education to the world about CBD. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do that as well. That allows us to continue to keep great content coming your way, more stories, more education, more updates, more knowledge, things of that nature. Also, if you're interested in trying out the CBD Pure product that I have been utilizing, go to the description below and you'll see a link there, and we'll save you some money on your purchase of that product, and we'll continue to try and do that for you to help make that easier for you so you can keep on rocking and rolling. And then lastly, if you are considering taking CBD, or you are currently taking CBD, you have a pre-existing condition, or you're on medication, please consult with your healthcare professional and have a conversation with them about utilizing CBD and integrating that into your regimen. Okay, it's very important that you do that. I'm not the one to give that advice, so it's very important that you get with the professional that's in that line of work to make sure that they're guiding you in the right direction and helping you along the way, okay? Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one. I'll talk to you soon.